Yeah, good evening, and at this time I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, May 25th, 2021 meeting of the City of Clearwater Parks and Recreations Board. This time I'd like to introduce our board members. Board Member Armstrong is here tonight. Board Member Hood. Board Member Tuttle. Vice Chair Rodriguez. Board Member Raftery. With that, we'll move to item 2 on the agenda, citizens to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. Are there any citizens to be heard on this item?
Yes, I have a email message from Elizabeth Davis. She does not list an address. Her statement is, we have bathrooms all over Clearwater in our neighborhood parks and some other locations, but there are no instructions on site to explain to residents how it is possible to have them open for a party or neighborhood event. Who can they call? Where is the website application? How much does it cost? Please ask. We are also alone in the county as our trails, we have no open public bathrooms for the public to walk, ride, enjoy our space. The Ream-Wilson, Del Oro Trail, and more are missing facilities from dawn to dusk. Surely we have staff that could open and close 3 to 4 bathrooms across our city for our residents. Cherry Harris, Del Oro, Countryside. Please ask for this, and let's get better at delivering for our tax-paying residents and voters.
Any other citizens to be heard? Hearing none, to move to item 4 on the agenda, new business items. Item 4.1, identify date for annual report. I believe we discussed this last time, and we were looking at a date in, a date in the fall, I think.
I have a different agenda.
Which agenda, which one did?
Oh, sorry, you're right.
I did print up some new ones. I was a little nervous that I might have had the wrong one printed up there.
Okay, we'll move to item 3.1, discussion of plans to provide the updates suggested by the citizens and council member Beckman to the Lake Bellevue recreation area. Mr. Raftery, I believe this was your item.
Yes, I added the item because of the previous notes from the 29th of January meeting. The citizens, through council member Beckman, had made some requests or suggestions, possibly with respect to updating the Lake Bellevue recreation area. And I was just curious as to whether there were any current plans where that could be accomplished, or it had to be folded into plans in the future.
Well, we are actually going to meet with the residents of the Lake Bellevue neighborhood because we're looking at, within the next few months, I'd probably say the July, August timeframe. We're looking at some renovations to Ed Wright Park, which is adjacent to Lake Bellevue, and we want to kind of master plan the whole area. Belmont Park, which is further up the road, we're looking to hopefully break ground on that sometime around October possibly. So we're looking to do something with Lake Bellevue and the adjacent Ed Wright Park within the near future. So we're going to reach out to the neighborhood at their next, not their next meeting, I think their August meeting. I had met with Ed Thebe, who is kind of the, works with the neighborhood over there, and we had had a meeting about probably 3 weeks ago, and he suggested that August would probably be our best time frame to go back for a community meeting, to get input from the community to see exactly what they would like to have in Lake Bellevue Park, and also what we can look at to make some enhancements for Ed Wright Park as well.
I think it's always good that if we hear something from the citizens, that they get feedback from the advisory board and to yourself, of course. I also had a question, a semantic issue, I guess. Is it Lake Bellevue as it's spelled here by me, or is it Bellevue?
IEW.
Pardon me?
IEW.
IEW, okay, excellent. I was a little bit curious about that when I published. I said I may have got the name incorrect. Very well.
Mr. Halios, if maybe when you schedule that meeting with the community, if you might invite any of the board to attend that, I think.
More than happy to do that.
Personally, I might want to attend, and maybe some of the other board members, if they're free at that time, they might want to engage with the community at that time too.
Good suggestion.
If more than one board member attends, we'll have to advertise the meeting.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
So Jim, if you could let us.
Will do.
This another day, thank you.
That'd be good for us to at least have one representative from the board there. And you make a good point,
Yeah.
but I think it would be good for us to
Oh,
have
absolutely.
somebody there.
One may be sufficient, just to.
Of one sufficient, that it does not have to be advertised.
Any other comments from the board on this item? Okay. Move to item 3.2, Recreation Center Hours of Operation and Programs. Mr. Helios, I guess?
Yeah, I had
I don't know
added
if
this
is
item
Mr. Effort.
primarily for education of myself and any of the other advisory board members, believing that the recreation center hours of operation were somewhat standard, but also based upon where that recreation center was located, the hours of operation, the different things they do could be tailored to the community that they're in. For example, I live up in the countryside area, Countryside Rec Center. I go to it at least 3 times a week. They have a number of different activities, but one of the things they do, even when I was working, I was aware of this, they open their weight and exercise room at 5 a.m. And that's for the business people, men and women both, that would, or anybody that would like to get an early start on their workout day. So you can go there at 5 a.m. and it's staffed and it's ready to go. I'm not an early morning person, but it kind of led me to ask the question about the other places that say, I suspect that they are tailoring their hours of operation and their programs to the community that they're serving and get feedback from the community if there's anything that they should be looking at differently. Would that
That's
be-
correct. I used to be the manager at the Countryside Recreation Complex many years ago, and we used to open at basically 7 o'clock. But then we had got a lot of requests from the community about opening, earlier and to accommodate those working people that wanted to work out. So we did kind of a time study, and
Right.
we were able to do that. And you are correct. We listened to community feedback. I can give you another example. Is I also ran the Ross Norton Recreation Complex, and we used to be open there at 7 o'clock as well. And I can tell you, if I saw 2 or 3 people from 7 to noon, that would be a busy day. So just during certain times of the year. Of course, during the summer, it changes. So we change those hours to reflect that. So usually that's what we do when we try to get feedback from the citizens on what they'd like to see as far as hours. And then, we have a block that we work within as far as budgeted hours within our operating and our personnel budgets. And then that's how we try to accommodate based on that.
I recall last year there was a citizen made comments to the board at one of our meetings relative to the swimming pool hours of operation at the North Greenwood Recreation Center. It seemed like it was closed on the weekend or not operating on the weekend or something, and they felt that would be the time that community's kids would want to use the swimming pool facilities. So that's what caused me to raise the question.
Sure. In those pools, usually traditionally, we open those up about 2 weeks prior to Memorial Day. So right now, we're starting to edge that up. And primarily, one of the reasons for that is that our lifeguards that work out of those facilities are permanent part-time, not permanent part-time, excuse me, they're what we call variable or seasonal employees.
Mm-hmm.
So those pools that are not heated, we use our seasonal staffing on that, so that's how we're able to kind of ramp that up. But again, that's for that pool. Ross Norton, Morningside was a little different this year because it opened. And the beach also is another one that traditionally we'll wait a little bit to open those pools, but they do stay open on the weekends during the summer. That's a primary kind of target time frame that we look to.
Absolutely.
Any other comment or questions from the board on item 3.2? Hearing none, we'll move to item, any comments from citizens? Hearing none, we'll move to item 3.3, consultant selection and Parks and Recreation Master Plan timetables. Mr. Halos?
Yes, we actually this week, our purchasing committee had a meeting to select the consultant for the conservancy discussion. So Kathy Blaha and Associates, which is a consultant out of Miami who's worked extensively with the Sarasota Bay Park Conservancy down, and their formation was number 1 on our list. I'll be contacting Ms. Blaha to go ahead and set up a dialogue and hopefully come to an agreement on some type of purchase order, going forward to have her work with us. And then the master plan, I really think that that's probably going to be something that we do towards the latter half of the year. Once we get into the next budget year, past October, we've put money into the budget to get a consultant for the master plan for them to be able to do that with us. So we look to basically after October 1st, I think is when we hopefully to advertise the RFP. I want to say maybe around July, August, with an award sometime after October 1st.
Could you spell Kathy, the last name?
Yeah, you know what, I'll send you guys a link so you can kind of see her
okay.
services and what she does and everything.
Very good.
Because you know what, I'm not sure how to spell that last name.
I can do Kathy, I'll let you do the last.
Yeah, there you go.
Any comments from citizens on item 3.3? Seeing none, any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, move to item 3.4, review, repair, and marking of sidewalk process. Mr. Helios,
If I
is
could,
that yours?
I added this item myself. I actually am on a neighborhood website up in the countryside area, and a number of people have made comments about the repairs of sidewalks that are needed, the pink markings that are done, but it just seems like stuff does not get done. Some of them expressed a concern that it could be a safety hazard. And I do recall the city has had to make a couple payments to people that allegedly had tripped over sidewalk issues and held the city responsible for their injuries and so forth. So what I thought I would do, and I brought this up last year as well, I believe there is a significant backlog of work to be done. I don't know how they categorize the critical ones versus those that can be done somewhat at convenience. But I also believe last year they ended up having to go to outside contractors to have the sidewalks repaired, because although it falls under the purview of the Parks and Recreation, it was a bit much work than they could handle. So I guess I'm trying to find out what the process is. And there's another issue I just happened to notice the last week, and I don't know if this is relevant to the sidewalk funding or not, but evidently there's a transportation trust fund run by the county that is basically funded by gas taxes that each county puts on the sale of gas. For example, the level of 12 cents a gallon can be used, but Pinellas County does 7 cents a gallon. And then there's other things as part of that transportation trust fund by the state and the county that make funds available for right-of-way, mowing, if you will, road repair, and as well as sidewalk repair. And I'm also curious as to whether any of that funding or those actions they're considering would benefit ourselves, our city, in trying to repair the sidewalks.
Sure, I can speak to the review and repair. What we do is sidewalks will come in and when we get a complaint or an issue that's brought to our attention, staff goes out to assess, and usually if it's a quarter of an inch, it's deemed as a hazard. And so then that is logged in the process. But I will tell you, as the manager of that division for several years, there is 10 employees and 1 supervisor for about 300 miles of street and 600 miles of sidewalk within the city of Clearwater. So yes, there's extreme backlog. And what we usually will have to do is we will contract out a company that comes out to grind down the sidewalks. Mm-hmm. And again, it just depending on the type of damage that's occurred, whether if it's raised to a certain amount, we can have them come out there and grind it. But there's some things that happen that we have to go out there and do a removal. And then it could even require some type of, a lot of what you're seeing, especially in countryside, because I live in countryside too, is that we have those laurel oaks that are about 30 to 40 years on their lifespan, and that's where we're getting now, and they're starting to pop sidewalks. And so we're getting to a point, and this is going to be a council discussion that we'll bring forward, is really how do we go forward managing the tree canopy in the city, especially in the right-of-way, because we get a lot of conflicts with the infrastructure and the utilities that are in there. So that's how that process is done. But yeah, the backlog on that, it can be anywhere from a year to 2 years when people see those issues that come in. We try to get them as quickly as we can, especially if it's an immediate hazard. They'll go out there and address it immediately or mark it off. But some of them will go out there and mark it for repair, and it may not be a significant issue right then and there. But if it's involving a tree root lifting something up, it becomes an issue after time. So if we don't have enough time to catch up to that, there is where you see those trip and fall areas and those problems. And as in regards to the surcharge with the gas option fuel tax, I can't speak to the the sidewalk portion of that. I know that there is a portion of that that goes towards road repair and infrastructure, but I'd have to look into that other part about the sidewalk piece and how that goes to.
Just after I added this item, that article came out where the county was talking about that fund is going to be in arrears in about 2 or 3 years
Yep.
max. And they're now trying to develop processes that will increase the revenues that they can get from it, which includes increasing the gas tax amount from 7 cents to whatever for the county of Pinellas. They've also considered using other general revenue to try and do it, as well as property taxes. But those have been dismissed. I think they're trying to focus on the gas revenue. But the person that's in charge of, at the county level, for the improvements and the sidewalk repairs has indicated that they have rated themselves as a D with respect to doing that stuff, keeping up to date with what the citizens would expect. So she has made the point to the county commission that they need to address this issue, and financially is what they need help to get these things taken care of. On the city sidewalk issue, are you able to put any kind of number on those that need to be repaired that are currently in the backlog?
I would have to look. The last I heard about, I want to say it was in the 2,500 range. And I can speak to, again, it's a resource issue, but probably early 2000, from 2000 to 2009, we had anywhere of up to 20 to 25 staff for streets and sidewalks. So now that's been cut in half. So a lot, unfortunately, we're reactive instead of proactive when it comes to those issues. So we try to get out there ahead of it, but I can have our staff kind of pull and see where we're at, but I want to say it's around 2,500.
And did you say that this is something that'll be brought before the city council at some point? The actions required to maybe reduce the number of sidewalk?
Yeah, it's going to have to be a comprehensive issue, and it's going to involve multiple departments. And this is where it gets a little fuzzy. We're in charge of streets and sidewalks, but so if there's a whole-scale sidewalk replacement inside of a neighborhood, that is done through the engineering department. Same thing with the curbing. If it's 1 or 2 sections of curb in front of a house, we'll take care of it, but whole scale, like you're talking 100 yards of sidewalk or 100 yards of curb, that's handled through our engineering department. And then when you get into the streets, that's handled through the stormwater department, because your stormwater rates pay for that street maintenance part of it. So it's pulling money from different pots, and it gets a little confusing in that sense as well.
Any citizen comment on item 3.4? Any board comment or questions on item 3.4? Hearing none, we move to item 3.5, nuisance species removal in parks.
I added a few things and they all kind of fit together, and excuse me if I
Okay, that's fine.
get into something that we shouldn't be doing, but I live up in the countryside also, and there's the Forest Run Park, and I've been up in that area 34 years or something, and there's a tremendous amount of overgrowth in that park, and I worry about coyotes that are in there, because I know they're in there, I hear them all the time, and I just worry about nuisance species. That's what I do. Part of my work is I work on Brazilian pepper removal and nuisance species restoration, and so I'm just wondering, what's the policy as far as cleaning up parks for getting rid of nuisance species, and is there any way to do vegetation control for coyote management? And the other thing that's kind of a pet peeve of mine is, and I'm not sure if this is the right place to talk about it, is power lines that are in the right of way, and the way that people just absolutely murder a tree by cutting out the heart of it, and it's going like that. I didn't know if we control that, or if that's even in our purview to take care of that, since we do streets and sidewalks. And so I just a couple of things that kind of bug me about the way people do management on certain areas. So tell me if I'm out of line and I shouldn't be talking about it. That's fine. I just thought I'd bring it up. So all the rest of these are all mine. So
Those are good questions. Mr. Haley, would you just like to talk about our approach to
Sure. Do you want me to address these one at a time?
eradicating species? Yeah.
So when we're talking about the nuisance species removal in parks, predominantly what we do is we will go in and we take care of the paths in the areas that are utilized. That's what we do maintenance on a regular basis. A lot of the nuisance species removal is, if we can, we utilize our volunteer program to do that. Like, we'll do that out at Moccasin Lake Park and certain other parks. And as you know, with the Brazilian peppers, the issues that we have with that is we cut it back and then they grow like that. So again, it's a manpower issue for us, is that can we work with the volunteers and have it cut back, but then in order to fully mitigate that, you need to apply an herbicide to it. And that becomes a bit of an issue, in residential parks, applying an herbicide that's strong enough to put dieback on a Brazilian pepper. So the nuisance species removals, when we can address it, we primarily do it with volunteers, because the way that we have it set up now with our park maintenance, we're strictly in there for, I hate to use the term, we call it mow, blow, and go, but that's what we do. We've kind of gotten away from that at Crest Lake Park because we are a little more, have a robust staffing model there, so we can be a little more attentive. But when it comes to our other parks, if they're not contracted out and our staff handles them, it is more of a mow, blow, and go and pick up the garbage in there. As far as abatement of nuisance species removals, that's something we try to utilize our volunteers for, just because it's not in our wheelhouse to be able to do that, unfortunately.
Okay.
I have a question, and for volunteers, how would someone join? Is there like a recruitment process for that, or?
Yeah, we have actually a really robust volunteer program that runs out of our Parks and Recreation Department. And it's all online. You can see it. And Samantha Moulet, who is our recreation coordinator for the volunteer program, she has every weekend some type of volunteer effort. This weekend they're going to be at Crest Lake cleaning up prior to the Memorial Day event that's going to be out there at the Veterans Plaza on Monday. So there's always, it's on the website, the myclearwater.com, under Parks and Recreation, and then it says volunteer, and you click on that, and then Samantha does a really good job mobilizing. They had a volunteer effort not too long ago in Moccasin Lake Park doing invasive species removals with potato air vine and things of that nature.
Any other questions or comments on these items?
Nope.
Okay, do you want me to go to the vegetation control for coyote management? Again,
Yes,
that would kind of-
yeah, let's just hit them. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
go ahead. Yeah.
that would be the same as the nuisance species removal in parks. There's no active program for that. The tree trimming practices, yeah, this is a frustrating one for our arborists. Unfortunately, Duke Energy has a 10-foot right-of-way on either side of their transmission lines and their power lines. So for the longest time, they wouldn't even tell us when they were coming in and trimming. So now we've got them to be able to tell us when they're coming in and trimming. But in order for them to, it kills our city forester and our head arborist when he sees the way they V-cut things. But, I liken them very much to the railroad and CSX. They kind of they have the authority to do what they need to do because it's considered a vital resource and a vital piece of infrastructure. So there's not much regulation that can be put on them, at least from our standpoint, as the city or the or at the county level.
Okay,
Okay.
any other board comment?
Yep.
Item 3. Any citizen comment on items 3.5, 3.6, or 3.7? Hearing none, move to item 3.8, food for thought. I don't know if that was just part of your
That was the end
closing.
of my comment, and
Okay.
somebody made it a whole different line,
Yeah,
so
okay.
excuse me for that.
I'm wondering about the trimming the tree for the power lines. Do you recommend another way for them to be able to clear space? I mean, do you recommend moving the tree entirely?
Well, you might as well take the tree out entirely, because it's just gonna be a constant maintenance nightmare. And so I would think that they would do that, but I guess they're built in,
They're just clearing space.
yeah, they're just trying to make room. But as you know, coppice growth that comes out of the top of a tree is just gonna keep coming. So you might as well take the whole tree out if it's right directly underneath the power line. And I think a lot of people have learned that you just don't plant trees underneath power lines, but that's not always the case anymore, so who knows?
But the city has responsibility for the trees that are by streetlights and so forth. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Those block those, you can, because I.
We go and we trim it, and,
Right.
you know, a lot of what we were talking about, you know, prior with the sidewalk issue, you know, that goes into, I think we really need to do a better job from a city point of view of education when it comes to right tree, right place, because, you know, one of the issues that, you know, like Mr. Armstrong had spoken about is that people will plant something, you know, what they believe is a nice small tree, but they think it's going to be the size of crepe myrtle, but it's not.
Right.
And it'll grow 30 or 40 feet, and then it becomes an issue. So, you know, what we really need to do, and, you know, again, this kind of goes back to the whole resource thing, but right now, we're saying with 10 urban foresters and 1 arborist. At the height, I think we were at, we had a citywide forester and 30 arborists. So, you know, you kind of, you try to work back from that, you try to be lean and mean. So again, I think it just goes to an education piece on teaching people about where to put the things, and also working with our planning and zoning department, because we're really trying to get away of putting trees in the right of way and in medians, and especially in the swales in neighborhoods, because that's our number one issue. You know, we've worked with the University of Florida and their IFAS extension, and they've actually come up with a spreadsheet which will tell you, based on the size, what tree you want to put in there, how much width you need on each side before you get to concrete. So we really want to try to push that education piece as we move forward.
How many foresters do you have on staff?
We have, I'd have to double check, but I want to say it's between 8 and 10 with 1 lead arborist. And actually, that lead arborist is over the Streets and Sidewalks division as well, because we kind of have those two together, because a lot of times they're doing the talking, because it'll be infrastructure issues from the tree, and then about, you know, the good thing is our Streets and Sidewalks guys don't like it, but the guy that's the manager, he's on the board of the Florida ISA, and he's very active in the tree community. So what we do now is, you know, where before we would root prune a tree that was in an area that was causing a conflict, but now we will actually meander the sidewalk out and around to the right of way, instead of having to root prune the tree, because what eventually happens is when you root prune the tree, it loses its stability, and then its chance of toppling over is going to be much greater, because you just took out a huge anchor that keeps it into the ground. So that's kind of one of the things we do moving forward. If we can, we try not to do that, and we try to just move the sidewalk around the tree instead.
Any other comments on?
From a budget standpoint, is Parks and Recreation the second largest budget within the city, or the third, or do you know offhand?
We teeter back and forth between us and the fire department. The police
Fire
department's the first, and I think this year fire may have beaten us by a little bit, but yeah, we are usually right up there at number 2 or number 3, just depending on the year.
Any other comments or questions? Now we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, old business items. I believe there are any. Hearing none, move to item 5, Director's Report. Mr. Helios?
Yep, just wanted to update everyone again, apologize for the last minute notice of the groundbreaking being delayed. I believe we're looking at an August date on that. As soon as I get something firmed up, I will let everyone know. I also sent out an email to everyone regarding a workday that we had at the Kings Highway Center with the Boys and Girls Club. So it was very successful. The Buccaneers and their corporate partner, Jabil, were out there. They put in a lot of hard work, and it was just wonderful to see the kids out there. They worked in conjunction with our Parks and Beautification Department, our Parks and Recreation staff, and our Building Maintenance Department to get that building up to snuff and looking good. That's actually an old recreation center. We have a few of these around the city where, you know, we developed a strategic partnership with another entity to operate out of there, and primarily what we do is we will, you know, we do major capital repairs in the building, but the day-to-day operation and kind of the upkeep of the building is a responsibility of the party that's in there. So that's why this was such a big help to have the Buccaneers and Jabil, you know, put that kind of money in there. And they actually really did a very nice technology piece inside as well. I don't know if anyone has had a chance to read through that and see it, but it's wonderful. The kids were really excited. And that's all I have.
Any questions for the director? Hearing none, move to item 6, board members to be heard. Any board member have anything else they would like to say? Mr. Raftery?
Yeah, I think it's important we bring it up as everybody should be aware. Of course, there was a bit of a controversy that erupted in the newspaper as a result of Mayor Hibbard taking acceptance of some of the comments made in the presence of Council Member Beckman at one of our meetings. My personal opinion, I thought it was something that could have been done privately, if you will, as opposed to publicly, but nevertheless, there was a message there that needed to be heard and said. But I want to make sure that we want to hear from the citizens. They tend to be our single most important reference point for things that need to be looked at that we may not be aware of. And therefore, I would like to encourage the citizens to come before us and make comments, be they good or bad, about situations in their neighborhood. Also, it sounds like that if a citizen would contact a council member with an issue that really belongs within the Parks and Recreation, I suppose that council member doesn't bring that to our attention. But what I was curious about, other than the council member saying, you need to go to the Parks and Recreation meeting and speak on Tuesday night, as I mentioned to somebody that was at a meeting, to come here and speak to us on tonight about their issue. If the council person hears this and makes that suggestion, is there a vehicle for council members together or as a group to convey to Parks and Recreation information they have from citizens relative to an issue that affects Parks and Recreation? I guess I'm trying to understand, if the council person doesn't come before us, which is appropriate, how does that information get to us that might be brought to a council member's attention?
I think the appropriate vehicle for that would be to work through the city manager on that, because that's usually how it works.
Okay.
So if a council member has a question regarding some type of process or a concern that a citizen had brought to them, they'll bring that to the city manager, and then he brings it to my attention, and then Mr. Horn's the type of city manager that he'll kind of do the introduction, for lack of a better word, and then we'll, okay, it's good. You, Jim, you're good to communicate with Councilmember X or Councilmember Y, and then I, keep him in the loop on that. So that would be something that if a citizen had brought something to a council member, they would either bring that directly to the city manager. Now, if it had something to do with the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, again, that person could bring that to the manager, and then the manager would then inform me, hey, Jim, make sure that this gets to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board so they can be kept abreast of the situation.
Okay. Appreciate the clarification.
Mr. Armstrong, do you have anything to share?
I'm fine.
Mr. Hood? Ms. Tuttle? Vice Chair Rodriguez?
Sure, just one note, since the opening of Crest Lake Park, my mother Gladys Sandoval is a resident here in downtown Clearwater. She goes to many of our parks extensively to exercise, and she's waiting for the Silver Sneaker program to fully ramp up again, because she has much more social life than I do. So I have to book time with her. So she's gone to the park. She has her friends go also, and she highly recommends. She thinks it's amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful example of what the city has done for the citizens here, and she's looking forward to seeing. Keeps asking me if there's any other parks that are going to be redone, and because she likes all of them, she thinks they're fantastic. She's been living here for going to be 10 years now, and wonders why she didn't move here earlier. So just want to let you guys know, from her behalf, I want to let you guys know it's a great job that's been done.
Awesome. We'd love to hear that. Thank you.
My only comments are that I had the opportunity to play golf with my son at the Landings Golf Course Sunday, and what I've been impressed with since serving on this board is just how important it is for our citizens to take ownership in our parks, and particularly neighborhood parks, for the citizens to feel like it's their park, and by using the parks and city assets like I did Sunday, it just gives you a good feel for the importance of that. When you start considering these city parks, your parks, you start looking around for trash laying around and wanting to pick it up because it's your park and your neighborhood, and you want to take good care of it. And I've seen through working with Samantha and the volunteer group at a couple places that it's really powerful when the neighborhood really takes ownership in their local parks. And I'd encourage citizens watching tonight to do that. We talked about tourism out on Clearwater Beach and how a meeting we had a couple weeks ago, and how the city has stepped up its game to pick up the trash and try to keep it out of the water, and to take care of folks who are not so intentional about what they do with their trash. But it's really more than what the city staff can take care of. It really takes a community effort. It takes residents and businesses to take care of their own property and surrounding properties to make sure that we're proud of our community, and in particular proud of our outstanding parks and recreation system here in Clearwater. So I encourage citizens watching tonight to get involved and identify that park in your neighborhood, and to contact the Parks Department to see how you can get involved and volunteer, or ideas you may have to improve those local parks, neighborhood parks. We certainly as a board would love to hear those. So with that, if there's nothing else to come before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Directory?
Second.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for attending tonight.